Hello and welcome back to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for readers. I'm Jenny, coming to you from Norwich in the UK, and I am joined by our friend of the pod, Millie, who you're in Weston-super-Mare, right?
I am indeed. Sunshine all the time.
Is it actually sunshine all the time? It's always been sunny when I've been
It's
there.
sunny now, and I mean, there's ice cream and slightly muddy sand, so it's all good.
Sand and a pier. Weston-super-Mare is also in the UK for listeners that aren't UK based. We are a UK contingent tonight, and Millie has very kindly offered to help me with this episode, which was a listener request. And I still don't know what I'm going to call it, but we're kind of going with, if you like this one, try this one. What listeners wanted was us to recommend other books based on books we may have already enjoyed or that some of our listeners have enjoyed. I have a book that Millie is going to do recommendations for me on, and Millie has a book that I'm going to do recommendations for her on. I might throw in some movie recommendations as well. And then we have 2 listener books that we're going to do recommendations for. So hopefully this works. This is a bit of a new format for an episode for us. Millie, thank you for coming on the experimental episode that we're about to do.
It's a pleasure. It's an honour. I think we're going to do good. We're going to go through lots of books.
Yeah, I think so. And we had great fun when you were on last time. So, Millie, as a way to introduce yourself to our listeners, I thought it might be nice for you to just literally recommend a few of your favourite recent reads.
Wonderful. Okay. I've got 3 that I've read recently that I really enjoyed. I'll start with the fantasy because we know I love a fantasy. And it's the Ballad of Never After, which is the second in this Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. And yeah, if you like a good fantasy world where you've got a female protagonist, and it's quite a light fantasy. It's not nothing too heavy, but it's got a good love interest. Sort of enemies to friends, I guess you could call it. It's the protagonist is Evangeline Fox. She goes to a place called the Magnificent North with the help of one of the Fates, Jax, the Prince of Hearts, to help her find her true love. So it's all good. It's very fun. I'm late to the party on this one, but so I won't talk about that one too much. But I have just read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Moshfegh. Very late to the party.
I still haven't read this. It's on my TBR. There's one that I'd really like to read, and I still haven't read any of it.
It's definitely worth the hype. Yeah, the whole unlikable female character, that in the fact they're unlikable, you kind of like them. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, don't need to say too much because I feel like everybody apart from us has read it.
I know, and it sounds so up my street. I love an unlikable female narrator.
Yeah. Well, I didn't used to, and I've just gotten into them a little bit more. I feel like it makes a change, you know. I've also read Sunburn, which I'd not heard of, by Chloe Michelle Howarth. Yeah, Howarth. And it's like a coming of age. I describe it as, did you ever watch Sugar Rush? It was a TV show back in the day.
No.
So it's kind of like a coming to age love story. But I would have described it as Sugar Rush, like less poppy, more of like an instrumental version of Sugar Rush. It's set in the 1990s in like a rural village in Ireland. And it's got Lucy and her sort of sweetheart Martin. It's told from the point of view of Lucy and her. It's like, well, they won't know, but it's between her and her friend Susanna. Very reflective, very emotional, very teenage angst. But I really enjoyed that, actually. It was really good. I listened to that one, actually. That was an audio listen.
Yeah, I've not heard of that one.
If people know what I'm talking about with Sugar Rush, then I think this is, like a slightly quieter version of that.
Teenage angst might be a bit of a theme as we go through some of our recommendations today.
Learn a bit of teenage angst.
Well, cool. Thank you for that, Millie. Where can people find you? Because your Instagram is beautiful, and I know that you share a lot of your books and your reading on there. So what is your Instagram handle again?
I am Salt on Sunshine. And yeah, I do like to share. I actually need to update my books I've read this year, I'm normally quite good. As soon as I've read something, I'll post it and then just give a really short review. I'm not into my long reviews. It's mainly like, I liked this, go read it.
And I love it. I get loads of like recommendations from your Instagram. It's great. So yes, thank you, Millie. And those sound like some really good recent reads. Yeah, I can't believe I haven't read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It's been on my TBR for ages, and I don't really know why I haven't read it. Maybe, I don't know. She became so popular as an author that I think part of me gets a little bit reluctant to read like really hyped books, but I know that I would enjoy
I'm
it.
exactly the same. If it's hyped, I just push it away and I just don't want to go near it. But I think this is worth it. I did read, what was Death in Her Hands that I took as well, and I did like that. But I did prefer My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Something quite, you get quite into it, and then you just get really interested in the main character. And she's pretty gross. She is very gross.
We're going to move on to the main topic of today, because I think we might get into this a bit too much. I'll have to rein us in, I think. But yeah, we're going to go with your pick first. Millie has chosen Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens, which she very kindly picked because I've read it. Which did make my life easier. But I think I read this 18 months ago, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm quite excited that you picked this one. But do you want to introduce everyone to the book?
I can indeed. I loved this book. I was really intrigued by the premise of the narrator being a ghost. That initially was like the hook. I was like, okay, I want to read the book. And it follows Blanca, who is a ghost who narrates the book, and set in the 1800s. It's kind of, I guess, a coming of age story in a way, because she's observing George Sand and it's Chopin. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, I think so. This book always makes me laugh, right? If you listen back to the episode where I talk about this, I did not know that Chopin, if that's how we say his name, was a famous musician. I had no idea. And Sarah very quickly informed me that it wasn't just some random... He's a pianist, right? It wasn't just some random pianist. He was actually quite famous. I was like, oh, I feel very ignorant right now. So yeah, it's based on a kind of a real famous pianist.
And that's quite nice, I think, as well. Yeah, I remember that episode that you and Sarah did, and I was listening to it, and I was like, I think he couldn't remember the name, or he didn't know, like, and I was like, sort of almost saying it out loud. I was listening.
Just some geezer, just plays the piano.
But yeah, so there's a storyline there between the ghost and her quiet observations of George Sand. But then there's the background of her life before she died and up to the point of her death, and then how she died. And it's a slow, but very immersive book. And you just get very invested in Blanca, the narrator. And I think you do obviously want to know what happened to her, but it's her observations of the living. I should say, so she is haunting this monastery, an abandoned monastery, because that's in her town where she was when she was living. So that then hundreds of years later, when George Sand and Chopin come and stay there, that's who she's watching. But yeah, it's a very quiet but intriguing book. And I think if you're not intrigued by a narrator being a ghost, I think it's a good one. It's a good one. But yeah, I never read anything like it, to be honest. So
neither had I. And I remember when we spoke about it at the time, saying that I hadn't read anything like it and couldn't think of anything like it. And I kind of still have that problem. I've kind of reflected on what I feel like the themes of the book are. And I'm not going to be able to give you like a ghost narrator haunting a monastery type book. I felt like the themes that stuck out for me when I was reading it were the like strangers in a small town type story. Like they're very much outsiders, aren't they, of this village that they've chosen to live in. Obviously, it has a unique narrator, very unique narrator. I remember it being very sensory and set in the summer. I wrote, because I can't remember if the family spend time by the ocean, but the Blanca, is that her name? The ghost definitely does. And I remember at one point her describing the oranges that are on the road that have been like run over by the carts and the scent of those oranges. Yes. And that's something that really stuck with me. There's a lot of kind of queer yearning and lust in it because she very much is very intrigued and attracted to George, right? Yes. So there's that element as well. And then obviously there's kind of the artistry element, it being very kind of art-based and focused on his creative field as a pianist. I was like, where can I go with this? I know you've read a lot of her stuff, so some of this isn't really recommendations for you. It's for people that might be listening. But I feel like Sarah Waters is quite a good match in terms of that, like, queer yearning and lust and historical-based fiction. I think the ones I was thinking of mainly were, I haven't read all of her work, but Tipping the Velvet, The Paying Guests.
Yeah.
Probably the two that jumped to mind for me. I think you might have read more of her stuff than I have.
There's also Affinity as well.
Affinity, I haven't read Affinity.
But yeah, I think that's a really, Sarah Waters is a very good, I can see where you're coming from there.
It's an obvious one for me and you, because we kind of like this sort of historical fiction. But I think if anybody hasn't read Sarah Waters or has read Sarah Waters, you'd probably enjoy Briefly a Delicious Life. So that was a cheating one. I went for a book that I read probably like 20 years ago, so I did have to look up the plot, but it jumped to my mind for some reason. That was Chocolat by Joanne Harris. I don't know if you've ever read this.
Yes, I love Joanne Harris. So good.
I've only ever read that one. My mum's a really big fan of hers, and she's like probably read all of her stuff, and I have loads of her stuff because my mum gave me all the books when she's finished with them. But Chocolat's set in like a small French town or village in the south of France. A lady moves in called, I think she's called Vianne, and introduces the local villagers to the delights of her chocolate shop. And I've just lifted this from the blurb. Each box of luscious bonbons comes with a free gift. Vianne's uncanny perception of its buyers' private discontents and a clever, caring cure for them. Is she a witch? Soon the parish no longer cares as it abandons itself to temptation, happiness, and a dramatic face-off between Easter's solemnity and the pagan gaiety of a chocolate festival. So although it's not quite the same, but I felt like setting-wise, it was quite similar, like the vibes of it are quite similar. Yeah. There's no ghost narrator, I'm afraid. And she's just about to release a prequel to it, like literally this month.
This is very good because I love her writing.
Oh, called Vianne, if that's how you say it, or Vianne.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes, it's a prequel.
Oh, that's made me happy. Actually, another one by hers that has similar vibes with the 5 quarters of the orange. Because you mentioned oranges, and now that's come to me, and that is, I think most of her books are set in sort of small towns in France, and 5 quarters of the orange, I remember being extremely immersive, and I think that could be quite good as well for Briefly a Delicious Life.
The 22nd of May. That is coming out.
That's very exciting news.
So yes, that's a prequel.
I will make myself wait for the paperback though.
The other book I thought of, less vibe-wise, was maybe The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I don't know if you've read that one.
I will admit here that I don't think I've read anything by Maggie O'Farrell.
So Maggie O'Farrell, oh yeah, I loved her non-fiction book, which is called I Am 17 Brushes with Death, which is like a really unique memoir where she reflects on her life through her 17 brushes with death, some of which are very, very real. She describes how she very narrowly missed, I don't know if it was a serial killer, but she bumped into a man. I think she was doing a walk up some like mountain, and he was very strange and very weird with her, and she left or went home, and he murdered somebody else, another woman, that night. So some of them are very real brushes with death. But yeah, I loved that non-fiction book. And then some of her other stuff I haven't really liked, but I like her historical fiction. So I liked Hamnet, and I really like the marriage portrait. And the marriage portrait is set in 1561 in the winter. So I remember it also being very like evocative of the season, but obviously it's an opposite season. And it's about Crezia. So she's the Duchess of Ferrara, and she's taken on an unexpected visit to a country villa by her husband, Alfonso. And you soon kind of realize that she's kind of trapped there, and she's trapped in this marriage that ultimately you can see is going to have a very challenging ending for her. And he commissions a portrait of her to be painted, and she falls in love with not the artist, but I think the artist's assistant, who helped her to escape from the situation she's in. So yeah, I think historically and in terms of like quite an art-based theme, that one I felt was quite good. But I'd say the vibes are quite different. But if you've read briefly Delicious Life and you just like historical fiction, then that is a really good kind of historical fiction with an artist in it.
I feel like I need to read some Maggie O'Farrell. I might actually start, now you said that, with her non-fiction, because that sounds really intriguing.
I loved her non-fiction book. It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, and then I like her historical fiction. I think she's great, and she's very descriptive and evocative in her language. So I think if you like that side of Briefly Delicious Life, then I think you would like Maggie O'Farrell's historical fiction. And then I won't go into this book because I think everybody knows about it. It's a very obvious one. But if you like a unique narrator, then obviously The Book Thief popped into mind. So
Yes.
then if you've not read it, the narrator of The Book Thief is Death, which is also a very kind of, the fact that the uniqueness of that narrator means that you know everything that's going to happen and you know who's going to die in the book, which is the only book ever to have made me cry. And the fact that you know who's going to die from the start, I guess it's that. Yeah, I don't know. It's all building up to that one point that you know that's coming. And it gets sadder and sadder as you read it. And I loved it. So, yes, The Book Thief.
I remember reading that. It was a while ago, so I can't remember every bit, but I'd forgotten about that one actually. And I think, that could be a good reread because it was the first one I'd read that had that narrator, Death as a narrator. I feel like it was quite a new... I'd actually forgotten all about that book. Thank you, Jenny. I just remembered how good it was.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of like unique narration is not done very often because I can't imagine there's many people that can actually pull it off. And I remember saying that about Briefly a Delicious Life at the time, is that the ghost narrator does not feel gimmicky at all, which I think is really hard to do.
Yeah, and I think she feels she's not gimmicky, and if anything, it's harder, I think, to make you feel something and to find a character lovable if it's something as absurd as, oh, it's a ghost or it's death. A part of your brain just goes, okay, whatever. But the fact that they make you care, I think, it's hard to do.
I've got a few movies for you, so I won't go into detail on these. People can look them up if they want to. But Under the Tuscan Sun is a good one. It's just a romance. It's a woman that's gone to Tuscany. So very summary. The movie of Chocolat is very good. I haven't watched that in a long time, but it's a very good one. And then one that I don't hear many people talk about is a movie called The Way, Way Back, which is just a perfect summer film. It's about a boy who is on vacation and he gets a job at a water park. And it's just that like everyday kind of life type movie, and I loved it. So yes, those are my summary movie recommendations for you.
Well, they sound good. I'm a bit bad at watching. Never seem to get around to watching anything, so I haven't seen those. I have seen Chocolat because it has Johnny Depp in it, and so I wouldn't have missed that.
It does have Johnny Depp in it. But when he wasn't known for being an asshole,
exactly.
Johnny Depp was very nice in Chocolat. Cool. Well, that's your one. So shall we move on to my one? So I chose My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Again, because I knew you'd read it and really enjoyed it. I'll intro the book as best I can. It's set in 1988 and it's a very 80s book. And we follow two high school friends, Abby and Gretchen. And when Lake House acid-fueled holiday ends with Gretchen disappearing into the woods and returning hours later, she is changed, and Abby believes she has been possessed. Gretchen's strange behaviour and mean girl ways has Abby reaching for an exorcist, but can she save her friend in time? Is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? And that's probably all the introduction I need to give. I like Grady Hendrix. I've read quite a lot of his books. I feel like this one... And I never remember the bloody title of the vampire book. The vampire book club book.
Seven Girls Guide to Slaying Vampires.
That's the one. And this one are the two that I've really enjoyed. And if you've never seen the cover of My Best Friend's Exorcism, it's amazing. It's like a VHS tape. And it really does look like a VHS tape. So yeah, this is a very good, fun, typical campy horror of Grady Hendrix, I think.
I'm so pleased that you chose this one because that was my first Grady Hendrix read. I read it last year and I'll be honest, I did pick it up because of the cover. I think I've heard of Grady Hendrix, but I'm not normally a horror reader. But the cover just got me. And then people told me that if you're not a horror reader and you want to get into horror, then Grady Hendrix is the way to go. So I read it and loved it so much. So I have got some recommendations that I hope are good. Well, I really enjoyed this.
I'm excited.
It's hard to... I've sort of gone... One is that I think is very similar in a similar style as writing. And then I've got a couple of ones because My Best Friend's Exorcism, although it is horror, it's very camp horror, as she said, but it's got quite a strong, obviously it's the two best friends. And what I took away from the book as well was their friendship and that kind of friendship you have with your best friend. And it's that bond that you have. So I've sort of got a few that's like gone down that road as well. So the first one is a T. Kingfisher book. It's called A House with Good Bones. It's got a very similar horror, but humour horror vibe to it, the same that Grady Hendrix has. It's a bit gross, but it's not too scary. We follow the protagonist Samantha, and she goes back. It doesn't actually say when it's set, but it has a similar 80s feel to it. I was imagining it being set as in maybe the 80s, early 90s. I don't know if that's just because that was in my head, because I'm looking now and I don't think it actually specifies. But it's, Samantha visits her mum in North Carolina in the suburbs, and she's her late grandmother used to own the house, Gran May. And when she gets there, her mother has changed slightly, which again reminded me of the Best Friend's Exorcism with her Frank impacting being changed. And it's quite light, it can quite camp. She can't put a finger on what's different about her mum, but she knows something's up. And it's a bit of a slow burn. Weird things start happening with the house, and she starts seeing weird, creepy things. It builds to a bit of a gross crescendo, should we say. So I think, if you haven't read any T. Kingfisher, I think this is a good one to start for the more horror, because I've read a couple of others and it's more fantasy, but this one was definitely more horror set in the real world.
I don't think I've heard of this one. I don't know that I have. I've got quite a lot of T. Kingfisher on my TBR, and we're going to get on to more T. Kingfisher in a while. But yeah, that one sounds really good. And the one that we'll talk about later, I also really enjoyed. So yeah, I'm very keen to read more of her stuff.
Her writing is very good, and it's got that humour peppers throughout it. And then I've got a couple. So there's one that's called Watching Women and Girls by Danielle Pender. And it's short stories, but it's very heavy on, they're all centered around female friendships. The way she writes has that blunt, sometimes unlikable, very sometimes a bit gross characters in there, which I thought is a sort of tenuous but similar vibe if you want that very close female bonds, female relationships growing up when you're younger, and everything's very intense and you would do anything for your best friends, that kind of vibe. And I enjoyed all of them, actually. It's a really good short story collection, because I think I'm remembering now, I would say 80% of them, and they all have that kind of intense female friendship going through.
Yeah, I've seen this one before. I do love a short story collection. I am immediately adding it on Storygraph.
The cover is gorgeous too. I do have a bit of a wild card. Well, I say a wild card. I'm saying that because it's another short story collection. It's called What She's Having, but I believe it was published by Dear Damsels. I think they've stopped. I don't believe that they're a publisher anymore. I think I saw on Instagram they weren't.
Right.
But the one short story I was going to recommend from there is by Alice Slater, who did, what was it called? Death of a Bookseller?
Yeah, which I really enjoyed.
Okay, so actually I could have probably just recommended that one, but I'm looking for some obscure short story. The short story is called Of Blood and Blooming Flowers. And it is, again, it's quite a short story, actually. It's female friendship. It's dark. It's got a little bit of humour, but it's very visceral, hungry, and gross. And it came to mind when you picked My Best Friend's Exorcism. That short story was one of the first ones that came to mind. And I couldn't remember who was writing it. Where, you remember you read something and you don't know who it's by.
Yeah, you did well to find that.
I was going through all of my books, all the short stories, like, where is it? And so pleased. And once I remembered it was Alice Slater, I was like, of course it was Alice Slater. So yeah, if you can find it.
Yeah, I've never heard of that collection before. That sounds really good.
I'm worried that they've gone out of, I've got a feeling I saw on Instagram that they've stopped publishing, but you might still be able to get the book second hand, or if you want to read it, I can send you my copy, but I know for listeners.
Oh yeah, I will. Listeners, you're screwed. I'm just trying to see if Alice Slater has a new book coming out, because I felt like I'd seen that she did Let the Bad Times Roll.
Oh.
Because now that you've said her name, she does kind of write that. Well, at least, Death of a Bookseller was her first book, but it definitely had that element of, even though they're not girls, but like girlhood and mean girl vibe and that kind of thing, with the dashes of like horror in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the kind of book that she is going to kind of continue to write. So I was just wondering what her new one's about. New Orleans then. Alone in New Orleans, Selena is struggling to fit in when a charismatic stranger invites her for a drink. She's grateful for the company, but as their friendship grows, she can't help but sense a darkness within her new friend. Who is Daniel, and what does he want from her? London now. Daniel is missing. No one has seen or heard from him in weeks. Beside herself with worry, his sister Caroline hosts an intimate gathering in a beautiful North London home so those closest to Daniel can come together and compare notes. But all isn't quite as it seems. Caroline has invited a stranger to the table, an accomplished psychic who claims to have met Daniel 4,000 miles away in New Orleans. As evening turns to night, the dark truth of what really happened in New Orleans begins to emerge.
That sounds good.
So that's her new one. So that's coming out July this year. Because I really did like Death of a Bookseller, and it was one of those rare occasions where it was a debut novel that I probably would never have known that it was her debut. I thought it was really well written. So yeah, it's exciting to hear she's got a new one out as well. And they're going to try and get hold of that collection. What She's Having, Stories of Women and Food.
Yes. All of the stories are brilliant, but they're not all that kind of horror sort of grossness to them. They're all very intense.
Yeah.
But that one in particular stood out to me. to this recommendation because it's very visceral, very good. I do have actually one little film. You've probably seen it.
Oh, go for
Drop
it.
Dead Gorgeous.
I have seen it, but a very long time ago, and I wouldn't be able to tell you what happens in it.
It's
about pageants.
Yes, it's the beauty pageants. It's got Kirsten Dunst. I think it has lots of famous people.
It's like, is it out in the 90s?
Yes.
Maybe early 2000s. 99.
There we go. So it's a little bit, it's not 80s, but it's got those, again, intense sort of female competitiveness and close female friendships in it. And I just remember it being quite funny and quite blunt and brutal.
Oh yeah, I might have to rewatch that one. The films that I have got, they're all of a similar vibe. Mean Girls, obviously. I went with Heathers as well. These are all kind of set in high school. And talking of Kirsten Dunst, The Virgin Suicides. So they all kind of like very much centre around the dynamics of female friendship.
Yes.
Both good and bad.
I still haven't
Mainly bad.
seen... Yeah. I still haven't seen The Virgin Suicides. I've read the book, but I haven't seen the adaptation, and I really want to.
Oh, I think you'd really like the adaptation. I think if you like the book, the movie very much kind of evokes the same atmosphere and vibes of the book as well. So yeah, I very much enjoyed the film. It's very good. I'm going to jump in here with a little ad for our Patreon, which we've started to do in a more organic way. I can't remember in the last episode, Sarah did it and her friend Cobby. What did she call it? It had a name, and then she mentioned the YouTube videos where you'd be watching a YouTube video and then you suddenly realise that they've moved into like an ad, like sales pitch. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably a little bit like that. So we're just like slotting it in so you can't just skip through because you don't know when it's coming. Yeah, just to talk about our Patreon. First of all, to say thank you to all our current Patreons, but also just to kind of let listeners know that our Patreon is out there. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, that would be amazing. We have 3 different tiers. However, we've kind of got a flexible payment system where you can pay what you want to be a member of our Patreon, and that will give you access to all our bonus episodes, our close friends feed on Instagram, anything else we put out there that we want to share with you guys. We do want to start a book club. It's not happened yet, but we would like to. So we have a 3rd tier that is currently full at the moment, which is our like book recommendations tier, where we send you books recommended the post, and books in the post to you that are tailored to you and your likes and dislikes. We get you to fill in a questionnaire, and then we tailor all our recommendations to that. Just wanted to plug our Patreon. It's how this podcast keeps going. It is quite a costly endeavour to do this podcast. Me and Millie are currently using software that we pay for to run it. It doesn't work perfectly. We were sat in 2 different recording studios and wondering where the other person was. Yes, so we pay a lot of money for software with lots of gremlins in. But yeah, it helps us to bring the podcast to you. So yes, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, then the link will be in our show notes. The people that we are going to do recommendations for, it's very exciting. They're very close personal friends of ours. It's your mum and my sister. So in a way, it's quite good because we're going to know what their likes and dislikes are, and hopefully these are quite tailored to them. At the same time, it made it really hard with my sister because I know what she's read. I know that she's a regular listener, so she's going to have heard all of these before. So we'll see how this goes. But we'll start with your mum. What was the book that your mum chose, Millie?
My mum chose Small Pleasures by Claire Chambers. And I felt a bit similar to you because my mum reads a lot. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to think of anything she hasn't read, but we'll give it a go.
Have you read it?
I have read it, but it was a while ago.
Well, I've never read it, but I did some like frantic Googling. And I remember we have talked about this book on the podcast, I think, more than once. I remember Alice reading it. And isn't it about a journalist that's gone to investigate a virgin birth, right?
Yes, it's one of those books like it is about that, but then it's not about that. So that's what I think it'll say like on the blurb. And that's what you could say happened. She's a journalist for a local newspaper. that it's more about the fact that she lives with her mother and her life is quite routine, and she obviously wants something a bit more, but she's just bumbling along in this same routine life, same boring stories at this local newspaper. And then this story about the virgin birth comes along, and she thinks, I'm gonna go and see, but she doesn't expect anything to come of it because her life is so routine. There are just these wonderful parts in there. I remember, I'm not spoiling anything here, but there's a moment in the beginning when every time her mother has a bath, it's set, so we should say in the 1950s, and I think once a week her mother has a bath, and the protagonist, Jean, sits on the sofa and smokes 3 cigarettes back to back. And that's her little treat. And she lays down on the sofa with her feet up and just smokes the cigarettes because she knows her mother will like it. And it's just little moments like that. It's a very quiet book, but a very wholesome book as well.
I basically read a lot of people's reviews and I pulled what I thought might be the themes from it. And I'd written quiet, observational, of daily life, obviously set in the 50s. Family dynamics, mundane pleasures in life. And that the ending annoyed people was the main gist of people's reviews. And this is what I remember when they talked about it on the pod, that people were very angry about the ending.
That surprised me though, because my mum loved the ending, and so she loved the whole
Did
book.
she?
Yeah,
Okay.
she really thought it was a clever ending, but I can see why it would annoy some people.
We won't spoil the ending. I did look it up to see what it was.
So I've gone with more author recommendations as opposed to specific books.
Yeah.
Anne Tyler is someone that came to mind.
Okay, I've never read any Anne Tyler.
Oh, Jenny, you must. She's so
I
good.
know. I think I own a couple of hers.
She's so good. Again, quiet stories, mundane life. Mundane, I should say, but not boring. And never has these big arching plots. They're just quiet little stories, not really even with a beginning or an end. It's almost like you've seen a snapshot into somebody's life, and she's just, talking about the sort of painting a picture of their everyday life. And some of my favourites of hers are French Braid, which I think would work quite well with the small pleasures because it's a family setting, and it is about the nun. So that one came to mind there. And also Back When We Were Grown-Ups, which again is another lovely sort of minimal story about Rebecca, who wakes up one day and she's got a family, kids, they have kids, and she just thinks, how did I get here, sort of thing, and it looks back at her life. But yeah, I think if you like Claire Chambers' writing, I think Anne Tyler would definitely, but yeah, you should definitely read some Anne Tyler.
I have an author that I thought, your mum's probably read her. I feel like we've gone very mainstream. But I wrote Claire Keegan down, again, for that kind of, not mundane. I don't mean mundane in a negative way, but that kind of those everyday life type stories. An obvious one is Small Things Like These.
Yeah.
We've done a whole episode on that in the past. That's an obvious one to go for. I've also read her short story collection, Antarctica, which, again, kind of, she writes stories that, plot-wise, are very small and everyday, but end up being, really profound, and it's all those small things that happen that have really profound consequences in her stories that I really love. And she also writes very kind of quiet, gentle books, I guess, but powerful and affecting, I suppose. So yes, Claire Keegan I thought was another author that your mum might enjoy if by some miracle she's not already read something by her.
I did. She might have read. I don't think she's read Antarctica, the short story collection. So I think that one definitely. I think she's read it.
I really enjoyed that. Antarctica is very good.
Definitely. I did actually. That's just reminds me. I did have this is a bit of a wild card. I've gone more down the route of the relationship between, in Small Pleasures, the relationship between the narrator and her mother. I just found some scenes, it really stuck with me, the sort of humour there and the sort of trivial little things. And Barbara Pym came to mind, in particular, Excellent Women, because the protagonist, Mildred, she, just the way Barbara Pym writes her, it just reminded me a little bit of what was her name? Jean in Small Pleasures. And Barbara Pym's such, again, in particular, that Excellent Women, it's small stories and it's set, I think it's set in a similar time, actually. I think it's the 50s. So I think it has that similar vibe to it. But yeah, I mean, again, that's quite an obvious. I think lots of people have read Barbara Pym, but
I haven't. So at least you're recommending stuff to me that I haven't read. I've got a couple that hopefully maybe your mum hasn't read. So A Whole Life by Robert Seethaler, which I have talked about on this pod a few times. It's a really short book following one man's entire life. So it follows this man called Andreas Egges, who lives in the Austrian mountains, and it follows his life through his really difficult. There's an incident where he's trying to rescue an old man and bring him down from the mountain, and I can't quite remember, but this makes him reflect on his whole. They have a conversation that makes him reflect on his whole life, and it goes from like his really difficult childhood, his very simple life working in that mountainous landscape, his very tragic love story, his life in World War II, and ultimately his death. And it's a really, again, like quiet but gentle and powerful story, and I loved it. It's been quite a long time since I read it now, but I can't think it's much more than 150 pages, and a bit like Claire Chambers, just the ability to write such a powerful story in such a short time frame. I hope your mum would enjoy that one. And the other one that is slightly left field, I've gone for Life Among the Savages by Shirley Jackson. So I don't know if you've read this one.
no, I haven't.
So she wrote a couple of non-fiction books about her family life, and they're very funny, they're very witty, and they're very much about the kind of, everyday things that happen with her children. And I really enjoyed that one. It's very good fun. And obviously she's a really good writer, and she's known for her gothic horror stuff, and they're very different. But yeah, she just writes that kind of domestic setting really well, and I thought that fit quite well.
That sounds good. I think that'll go on my list as well.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. Definitely, you'd love it. So I hope your mum would enjoy it. I have a few films for your mum. I went with Amélie. I don't know if you've seen Amélie.
I have. I don't know if
the
my
French
mother has.
film. Yeah, so I'm not going to spoil the plot, but Amélie very much enjoys the mundane, everyday things in life. And again, it's a very simple story, but it's beautiful. So Amélie, I went with a TV series, The Detectorists. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it's very gentle. So it's Mackenzie Crick and Toby Jones, and they are detectorists, and it's very gentle. It's very sweet. It is a really lovely program. So if you've never seen The Detectorists, it's just beautiful. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah, it's a lovely program. So she should definitely watch The Detectorists if she hasn't. And then I went for a film. It's also a book called Fried Green Tomatoes, which I really enjoyed. I've not read the book, but I loved the film. Again, it's that small town setting, mundane, everyday life, but with like profound events that happen in it. Yes, I really enjoyed that one too. So
that sounds good. I haven't seen that.
I give that to your mother.
Fried Green Tomatoes.
Fried Green Tomatoes. I feel like the book was written by someone called Franny something. They run a cafe, maybe called Fried Green Tomatoes, or the Whistle-Stop Cafe. They fry green tomatoes at the Whistle-Stop Cafe. Yeah, it's a really nice film. I really enjoyed that one. We'll move on to my sister. So my sister Katie, hello. You will be listening at some point. She asked for recommendations based on What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So that's where T. Kingfisher's popping up again. This is retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, I think. I'm pretty sure it's by Poe. Yes, it is by Edgar Allan Poe, which I've never read. So I'm just going to read the blurb because it was easier and to the point than me trying to rewrite something. So when Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend, Madeline Usher, is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed with a mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. You've read this one, haven't you?
I have not read
Oh,
this
I thought you've
one.
read this one.
I've read, what's it called? Nettle and Bone by T.
Okay,
Kingfisher.
that's one of her fantasy ones, right?
It is. I read that one and Thornhead, the little fantasy novella, and then The House of Good Bones, that one. So I've only started my T. Kingfisher journey.
I mean, I had some obvious recommendations. I know my sister has read them, so I'm just going to quickly go over them for any listeners that might be delving into Gothic fiction, because this one very much is a Gothic fiction book. It's set in a big, creepy house with weird stuff going on. So, again, I'm just going to name authors. So, Shirley Jackson's an obvious one. We've Always Lived in the Castle is one of my favourite books, so I definitely start there if you've not read any Shirley Jackson. Daphne du Maurier as well. So Rebecca is her obvious kind of Gothic fiction. Obviously, there's The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters as well, who we've already talked about, but that's her kind of Gothic novel. So my recommendations, I went for a short story collection and an author who writes short stories. She also has some novels as well, but I haven't read them yet. But the short story collection I went with is Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, and I've definitely talked about this on the pod before, but it was the kind of surreal, unsettling nature of what's going on at that house that made me recommend this collection, because it's very surreal, it's very disturbing, and it's super creepy and gross in places. Some of the stories are very gross. I know I talk about this particular story in the pod quite a lot, but there's a story where there's something living in the toilet and it's made up of like all the gross stuff that might block a drain, and it like talks to her in the story. It's really grim, but that's always the one that springs to mind. And anybody kind of wants kind of slightly gross, disturbing fiction. And the author that I wanted to recommend was Mariana Enriquez, and the short story collection I've read of hers is called Things We Lost in the Fire. And I haven't read it, but I've seen lots of people say how good it is. The Dangers of Smoking in Bed.
Yes, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, and she writes quite disturbing but clever horror fiction. I haven't read it because it's so bloody massive. She has written a novel as well called Our Share of Night, which is supposed to be very good, but it is nearly 600 pages, so I haven't picked that up. I'd love to, because I love her short stories. So I'm hoping that when I get to that one, there'll be a good one. I've now opened that on Storygraph and can see that it's already on my sister's TBR. So there we go. Well, get to those ones sooner, Casey.
It'll act like a little, Ned. Read it quicker. I do have a recommendation because I've gone with more of the sort of creepy. It's not so much a creepy house, but it does have lots of themes of nature, and it is a very creepy book. It's called Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford. It's about a father and daughter who live in a house in a wood, surrounded by trees, and there's a village nearby, but they're a little bit, people come and see them, but they're a little bit odd. So Ada was made from the ground, and her and her father are, I guess you could say healers. People come to them with ailments and they try to help them. But I'm not spoiling anything here. This is the premise. The way they do it is they put people in the ground. And so it's quite creepy, quite a little bit gross in places, but very intriguing. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but it's very earthy, very dark, and
earthy.
Yeah, earthy, literally earthy, because they're putting people in the ground, and sometimes the people come out better, and sometimes they don't, and you don't really. You're unsure if they are witches, are they doing magic, or is this something else? You're unsure of what's going on through the book, and it's very intriguing. It's quite a short read. It's under 200 pages. But yeah, it's got the gross, dark, creepy vibes. I think your sister would like it. I hope she will. I think it's definitely worth a read. Yeah, it's also got a little sort of relationships in there as well. But yeah, I hadn't heard of it before, and I read it and I absolutely loved it.
Ah, cool. Yeah, I think I've seen it kind of do the rounds on like the horror side of BookTube. Yeah, we probably should have said that in things that what moves the dead? Things that move the dead. What's the book bloody called?
What moves the dead? What moves the dead?
What moves the dead? So, what moves the dead in the book this isn't a spoiler because I feel like it happens I feel like it's quite a faithful retelling of the fall of the House of Usher. A big thing in it is the fungus, and that's what is causing all the problems at the house, is the fungus that grows in the house. And one of the things that happens in it is there's lots of hares in the garden that are moving in weird ways, and it turns out that the fungus is kind of like taking over bodies. So an obvious recommendation is Mexican Gothic. They almost have the same storyline. And I think I talked about this in a Patreon episode. T. Kingfisher, like halfway through writing her book, realised that Mexican Gothic was coming out, and that was also a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher, and like nearly didn't publish her book at all. And I actually much preferred it to Mexican Gothic. I felt Mexican Gothic got a bit daft and silly at some point. Yeah, so that's an obvious recommendation. It's definitely one my sister will already be aware of. There's a really cool feature on Storygraph, and I don't know if you've used it, but whenever you pull up a book on Storygraph, you can click on browse similar books, and whatever AI software they use like pulls up a load of titles. And I always find that Storygraph's recommendations are usually things I've never heard of before. They can be books that are quite old. It's actually really good. We did an episode quite a few years ago now where me and Sarah read some of the books it recommended, and they were all books we'd never heard of before, and I really loved the book that I read. So I did this for my sister because I was struggling with this one, because I know her reading taste and like what books she's read, so I knew that most of the stuff I'd say she'd already read. But it threw up a book called Fruiting Bodies by Catherine Harlan, which I think is a short story collection. This genre-bending debut collection of stories constructs 8 eerie worlds full of desire, wisdom, and magic blooming amidst decay. In stories that beckon and haunt, Fruiting Bodies ranges confidently from the fantastical to the gothic to the uncanny, as it follows characters, mostly queer, mostly women, on the precipice of change. So yeah, I thought that one sounded really good.
The
other bit, which just sounded hilarious. And my sister will appreciate this. It's called Slugs by Sean Hepson, which came out in 1982. And I just like the blurb for it. They slime, they ooze, they kill. A novel of mind-shattering horror and a new breed of slime-ridden, oozing slugs lurking in the waist-high grass, developing a taste for new things, for blood, for flesh, human flesh.
That's amazing.
Slugs by Sean Hudson. Which I'm like, I really want to read that now. It's probably terrible. Oh, do I have any? I mean, my sister has watched all the films I could possibly share, but I do have some. Movies. My sister's definitely seen these. Me and her watch an awful lot of horror films, but I'd say these are not that scary. Spooky gothic, which is kind of what I quite like in my books as well. So I've gone Crimson Peak, The Others, Sleepy Hollow, and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Are all quite safe horror films that are not going to stop you going to sleep, but have that very gothic vibe to them. Yes, my sister has seen all of those, so they weren't for her. Yeah, we better wrap up there. We've been recording for over an hour. Thanks, Millie, for coming on. Wait, I did write your Salt on Sunshine, aren't you, on Instagram, if people want to find you?
I am, yes. Yeah. Tried to keep my, book reviews updated, so...
You've got lots to look back on. If you don't update, that's fine. Thank you, everybody, for listening. There are loads of ways you can get in touch with us with questions, ideas, feedback, your recommendations, and I'm sure we'll do more of these episodes and get our listeners to give us some book titles. So you can contact us on email. We're the Bookcast Club at outlook.com, or on Instagram where we are at Bookcast Club. You can sign up to our newsletter for more reviews, new releases, podcast recommendations, and updates on the pod. Please check out our Patreon. You can get a 7-day free trial, but you can also access all of our bonus content for as little as £2 a month. There's over 40 bonus episodes already in waiting, and a new episode goes up each month. Can you rate us on Spotify, or rate us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts? That really helps us get our podcast out to new listeners, and sharing our posts on social media would be super helpful too. We're mainly active on Instagram, but we also have a TikTok where we're at Bookcast Club. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks again, Millie, for coming on.
And thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
You're welcome anytime. And thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.